Alright then, lads, ladies, and those of us who know better. My name is Jackson MTT Kenny, and this is Bold and Bright. I thought I'd kick off my first episode by discussing my favourite and arguably least favourite genre. So, my favourite genre is Hopepunk, which not a lot of people have heard of, which I think is a real shame because it is so good. I think I've yet to encounter a Hopepunk story that's actually disappointed me. But maybe that's just because I can't find a lot of things that are actually labelled Hopepunk. It's not considered an official genre like sci-fi, fantasy, romance, So, what Hopepunk is any story where there are still bad things happening, and there are good people, or at least halfway decent people, trying to fight the bad things. Now, that is a very vague explanation, even I know that. So, it's kind of taking, all of the trauma and bitterness and anger and saying that instead of lying down or instead of just wallowing in this and accepting that nothing can get better, we're going to try to make it better. So it makes sense that since that's my favourite genre, my least favourite genre would be the exact opposite of Hopepunk, which is Grimdark. Now, if you want a full explanation of what Grimdark is, Overly Sarcastic Productions has a wonderful trope talk that I have listened to on quite a few occasions when I just needed a wee pickup, because Grimdark as a genre tries to tell you that there is nothing worth believing in. Like, if you've ever sat down to watch a film or read a book and it's just non-stop misery and, oh, humans were the true evil all along and the ending is everyone dying or collapsing in a puddle of depression goo, that was probably a Grimdark story. Now, as a whole, I try to be a very hopeful person. I don't like surrounding myself in media that tells me that I should just lie down and give up, because one day I might start listening to that, and that's not the road I want to go down. So, Hopepunk as a genre, I think, was only officially named in 2017, but it applies to a lot more stories than just stories that were made after 2017. So, Lord of the Rings is a big name that comes up if you look up Hopepunk. I've never read the Discworld books by Terry Pratchett, but I tried. I read a little bit of a Guards novel. It's sitting here on my bookshelf, but I can't read the title from here. So, I couldn't get through it. Sorry, Sir Terry. I know you wrote very good books. I did get through, Dodger and Good Omens. But that's the extent of my Terry Pratchett experience. And so, Discworld is Hopepunk as well, apparently. I have that on good authority. Looping back to my previous example about Lord of the Rings being Hopepunk, I haven't read that either. I've just listened to a lot of video essays about it by people who can actually get through those books. I tried. I quit after Tom Bombadil showed up. I just couldn't. There were too many descriptions of trees and food. But going back to my first point, I have ADHD. You might need to get used to me jumping around topics an awful lot. I swear there's a point to all this. So if you want a good example of Hopepunk versus Grimdark, Lord of the Rings is Hopepunk. Game of Thrones is Grimdark. Whatever feelings you got about those two things in particular, that's just what they're classified as. So you can have Hopepunk stories that have all of their brutality, you can have, the struggling with morality, you can have the murder, the violence, etc. But what it has to come down to is that the people in it want to be better. They don't want to be living in a broken depression goop world. And I feel like there is something very, very cathartic about reading or experiencing anything Hopepunk, because we're constantly barraged with just so much negativity all the time. Turn on any news platform and can I call news outlets as a whole Grimdark? I think I can, because For me, reading the news does not inspire me to want to change things or pursue a dream or do any of that. It makes me want to stick my head in a pillow and scream, because how can I possibly fight something like broken governments or institutional violence? What can I do? And when I'm reading Hopepunk, I don't get that feeling. I get the feeling that, okay, so we're suffering, we've got the trauma, we've got this, we've got that, and that won't stop us. I feel like there's this false assumption that just because something is inherently darker, more problematic, or just less hopeful, it's inherently more mature. I do not believe that at all. For me, a lot of stories that just try to hit you with the everything is miserable, humans are awful, it winds up just striking me as like a really edgy 11-year-old that's just throwing their action figures at a wall and saying, see, everything's terrible, it's all wrong and terrible. And that gets boring so quickly. I ran out of words for bad right then and there, and I was trying to do the shortest example of that I possibly could. It's really monotone. It's miserable. I don't like it. And the idea that, hope is something that you grow out of. I have had conversation with people older than me more than once where it's just, oh, haha, you reach your 30s and it's all downhill from here. Yeah, well, maybe I don't want to see everything is all downhill from here, because, again, that's not going to make me want to fight for what I want. That is just going to make me sit in a puddle of apathy, and really, apathy puddles are not worth sitting in for longer than 3 consecutive seconds, so I'd rather read something that fills me up with hope. So if I had the choice between sitting down and watching the news or watching, say, She-Ra, the reboot, not the original, I've never seen the original, I would pick the kids' cartoon in a heartbeat, because, oh, that's a pretty dark show in all honesty. It focuses on, like, child abuse and just where's the lines for morality and can you forgive someone, and the unhealthy dynamics you get trapped in as a literal child and then try to grow out of, or don't grow out of, and how that impacts you for the rest of your life. But it's still pretty. There's still bright colors. There are still people just calling each other friends instead of just, oh, yep, something blew up and everything's awful and boring. There's as well as the tendency to see things that are hopeful as naive or for kids. There's also the idea that anything darker has to be more realistic, which, okay, I've been through some real stuff. I've had a very rough time of it in recent years, but do I think that, oh, my world is this horrible grey blob where nothing good happens ever? No. And that's coming from someone who has chronic depression. I don't think the world will never get better, and I don't think this is a grey blob of goo. I try to do better, and I try to put out, just vaguely good things into the world, because I think that every single person can play a part in this, and storytellers have a role in this as well. So, do I believe that, everyone's entitled to their opinion genre-wise? Yes. But don't try to sit me down and tell me that everything is hopeless and awful, because I will not believe you. Alright? And I think I'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Jackson MTT Kenny, and this has been Bold and Bright.